Hello and welcome once again to Amateur Hour. I'm Straz, and today we're going to be looking at a cheerleague game between Ninjahood and Shadow Brotherhood on Dragonshire. So far, this has been a close game, with Shadow Brotherhood, the red team, having a slight structural advantage over Ninjahood. With that said, Ninjahood, who are the blue team, are looking to close that gap by making a move on Shadow Brotherhood's bottom fort. I think this is the right call for the Ninjahood right here. They need to take down this fort to even out some of this pressure on bottom lane, so things are just not pushing their core in this bottom lane and no pressure is being done by them. In response to this, Shadow Brotherhood is going to take this camp here. Now, I actually don't think this is the best use of their time. I think threatening a keep would have been a much better choice here. Either way though, they've been spotted and it looks like the Ninjahood wants a team fight. They spot Falstead flying over and they see Brightwing, and so they dive in. Unfortunately for them, Brightwing is able to teleport away and there's no big loss here on the part of Shadow Brotherhood. Meanwhile, Falstead flying down here and grabbing the shrine has opened things up for the Shadow Brotherhood. They can grab a dragon now at any time. In order to counter this, Leoric goes to the top shrine to neutralize it. Instead of instantly going to try and get that shrine back, you can see the Shadow Brotherhood is going to clear this wave here, which is a good choice. They're also going to push this giant camp since they know where Ninjahood is and they know they're not close. Now, this is actually a fantastic move, as it's going to put additional pressure onto that core, as these giants are going to go down to the bottom lane. Because of that pressure, you're going to see the Shadow Brotherhood look for a team fight. That's why Joanna's playing so aggressive right now. They want them to respond to this. That's the idea, because any time that they waste is just going to be more time those giants are going to have to push on core. Ninjahood takes the bait, and you can see that they're chasing them. Shadow Brotherhood doesn't actually want a real team fight here, they just want to stall as long as possible. They want Ninjahood to chase them. Unfortunately, Brightwing is playing bait a little too well, and ETC is going to slide in here and do a ton of damage, forcing her to ice block. At the top, ETC is going to drop a dance on top of Jaina, which is unfortunately not going to do a whole lot, and it's actually going to stun him more than it is going to stun her. At the bottom, however, Brightwing was taken out, and Sonya is going to drop as well, as Ninjahood is able to focus her down. All of a sudden, it's a 4v5. They're also going to blink on top of Joanna and almost kill her, but she's going to pop Iron Skin and be able to get away just fine. Meanwhile, as all this is going on, you can see Falstead flies over everyone to pick up the Dragon Knight. Even though in this situation, Shadow Brotherhood is technically behind as it's a 3v4 against them, it doesn't matter. By picking up the Dragon Knight here, all of a sudden Ninjahood has to play defensively. It's also worth mentioning that the Dragon isn't actually playing aggressively here. This is pure defensive, stalling out play. The whole point of this play isn't really to win the game or to do damage to any structures. It's just to force Ninjahood to play defensive. You're never going to see him, Falstead in this dragon, actually get too aggressive. You're never going to see him commit to any towers. He pokes with the dragon's flame breath, but he never actually goes in for a hard engage. He's not really trying to take a structure, he's just poking, doing what damage he can, and just essentially not putting himself in a tough spot. As soon as things start to turn against him, you can see he starts to back out a little bit. He's just going to continue to poke here. He feels safe as long as Joanna's there to kind of back him up. What's also worth mentioning is all this is going on, minions are continuing to push core. They're not doing a lot of damage, but they will slowly start to poke it down. One thing I want to bring up here that I didn't have a chance to bring up before, those giants that Shadow Brotherhood picked up so long ago, well, those actually were able to take down this middle keep. That wasn't the dragons doing. By stalling for such a long time and pulling Ninjahood away from their core, those giants were able to do a lot of work. It was a great play by Shadow Brotherhood. Now that the dragon's down though, they need to start thinking about how can they win this game definitively. The answer really is one of two things. They get the next dragon, or they get any kind of pick off in a team fight. To expedite the process, you're going to see Shadow Brotherhood picking up minion camps here. Now this is completely safe as long as they do it fast. While these camps aren't going to probably lead to winning the game, they are going to mean that there's going to be constant pressure in every lane, which is going to be difficult for Ninjahood to defend. Unfortunately for Shadow Brotherhood, Ninjahood spotted Joanna here and they're going to dive in hard to try and pick her off really quickly. Unfortunately for them, Falstead is going to fly up and help Joanna out here with a quick gust. While the gust doesn't save her life, it buys her a little bit of time combined with her Iron Skin, which is enough for the rest of her team to come to try and even things out. Sonya's going to beautifully dive into the backline here right onto Li Ming, and just the instant damage that she's going to put out basically means that they have to get out of here now. ETC is going to be able to get a dance off here, but it's not going to do much before it's interrupted by Joanna. This has suddenly gone from a terrible situation for the Shadow Brotherhood into a great one. Sonya's in the back line, Falstad and Jane are in the front line doing a ton of damage, and everyone else is just completely fine and completely healthy. At this point, Shadow Brotherhood has essentially won the game. Uther, Li Ming, and Thrall are all super low, and as Uther gets cleaned up once again, you're going to see Falstad swoop in to take care of Li Ming. With 2 members down, Ninjahood essentially has no hope to defend this last push, as catapults are already starting to take shots on core. All Shadow Brotherhood has to do is just go out there and start doing damage, and that's exactly what they do. So what happened there? Well, there's a lot to take away from this game, a lot of lessons that you can take away as both a team and as a just Hero League solo player. First off, remember how I said this was a close game? Well, it isn't really a close game. On levels and kills, sure, it's a close game, but on structures, no, not at all, and that's a big deal. When you kill a fort, you're not just gaining experience, you're allowing your minions to push further onto the other side of the map. That means extra pressure, and extra pressure means that your opponent will have one more thing to worry about. Now, if you take down a keep after taking down a fort, all of a sudden, they have an exposed core that they need to worry about constantly. Throughout this game, Shadow Brotherhood is keeping pressure up. They put an emphasis on that bottom lane for a reason. There are just so many minions you can grab on Dragonshire to harass it. As long as they keep winning those camps, the bottom lane is going to get pushed, and pushed hard. The Shadow Brotherhood is also doing something else. They're playing with the heads of Ninjahood. Ninja wants kills badly. At this point, they figured this out, and so they realized that they can play them like a fiddle. All they have to do is bait with Brightwing, and they'll chase every time, even if there's something better they could be doing. This is a skill in itself, yet if you've ever played Nova or Murky, you know exactly how it works. You're just too juicy, and if you start getting kills, people will tilt and chase you mindlessly. Here's the thing, while players at higher levels don't do exactly the same thing, they absolutely do respond to certain patterns. It doesn't matter what level you're playing at either, try to notice if your enemy seems frustrated or if they chase easily, or alternatively, if they never do. Picking up on these patterns will allow you to get a huge advantage. Right now, the teamfight that you see about to happen on your screen is entirely played out exactly the way that Shadow Brotherhood wants it to be played out. That's why Brightwing is hanging back here. The whole idea is to get the blue team to see her so they chase. Now I'll be the first to admit that this engagement right here is certainly not a good thing for Shadow Brotherhood. They played it a little too aggressively and a little too cocky, and they're going to pay for it. This could have been a complete disaster for them. They get away with it just barely, but they still take a few losses that could have potentially set them back in a much larger way. In fact, I honestly believe that this would have set them back incredibly far if it wasn't for the actions of Falstad here. I mean, just look at this play. I mean, really look at this play. This is beautiful. This is just such quick thinking on his part. Remember when I was talking about the individual? Well, this is exactly what I mean. This is how you can save a game. Obviously, opportunities like this won't always present themselves to you, but when they do, you need to know when to take them. And when you do take them, you need to know what to do with that little bit of advantage that you can pick up. Falstad here, in picking up the Dragon Knight, does not push stupidly with it. During the actual cast, I made a comment talking about how I was almost expecting him to go bottom lane to try and move on core. And while I believe he would have gotten some core damage down, I don't think he would have been able to win the game. And in fact, I think that would have cost him his life, and that could have swung things once again against Shadow Brotherhood. So really, he makes the right call here, just playing defensively. Really, just picking up a little bit of experience and just dancing back and forth, taking some towers, that's a good thing. They don't need to push the core with this. All they have to do is just continue on and wait for everyone else to get back up. This brings me to another point. Don't rush things. We tend to talk about these moments in Heroes of the Storm about how if you have an opportunity to win the game, you have to win the game, etc, etc. And that's 100% true. But at the same time, if you're not in a do or die position, then maybe don't just jump into that. Yeah, I think there was a chance here that if they played their cards right, they could have probably ended the game, but I think it would have been hugely risky, and any wrong move or any good play by any member of Ninjahood would have turned it around, and then they could have lost the game. Sometimes the conservative play is the right play. Now that doesn't mean it always is, and it doesn't mean I'm telling you never to be aggressive, but you kind of have to just play it by ear. Shadow Brotherhood takes a great gambit here. By just continuing to put the pressure on, they basically have figured out Ninjahood. Speaking of figuring them out, this might have just had Admiral Akbar's face just plastered all over it. Joanna is a Live Lord. She's just never going to go down that easily, and there was no way they were going to be able to blow her up here, even with Li Ming. There's a certain point in that last fight that you can just tell Joanna just turns around and just basically says, no, you're not killing me. And as soon as you see Sonya coming in from the bottom, you know that it's over. Once again though, and like I was saying a little bit before that team fight, Shadow Brotherhood has just completely played them. They knew exactly what was going to go on here. They knew that Ninjahood, instead of being patient, instead of just trying to buy their time as much as they possibly could, they're going to see that pressure coming at their core and they were going to do something rash. As soon as they saw that Joanna, it didn't matter that that was a terrible position to dive into, they just had to have it. They had to dive in, their whole team in a narrow corridor. When I talk about playing conservative in Here's the Storm, this is what I mean. I'm not telling you to never play aggressive, but when you're going to play aggressive, you better be playing aggressive for a good reason. If you play aggressive purely out of panic, then you're probably going to make a mistake like that. You're going to dive into a narrow corridor and you're going to get yourself wiped. That's it for this episode of Amateur Hour. A few weeks ago I asked if anyone was interested in an actual Amateur Hour that would be streamed on Twitch. It looked like a lot of people were interested, and so I'm now going to do it. I'm aiming for next Wednesday at around 10 PM Eastern Time on our Twitch channel. If you have any specific things you want me to cover, please tweet at me. My details can be found in this description, or the description of this video. As is usual, please subscribe if you haven't already, and toss this video a like if you thought it was helpful. That's all for now. I hope to see you guys on Wednesday night.